Hello and welcome to my first online recorded class. Today we're going to be focusing on the side body, and it's going to be a yin-based sequence, so we're going to be holding the poses for a little bit longer than usual. We'll start right on in. So bring your toes together, walk your knees out, send the sit bones back, coming all the way down into child's pose. So let the forehead go to the floor. Take a deep sigh out through the mouth. And start to settle into your breath as you send the sit bones and the fingertips away from one another. And so I'm going to be offering this class with no props, as most of us or many of us don't have props accessible at home. But just know that if at any point you might find props helpful and you have them, you're welcome to use them. Maybe pillows underneath the chest, under the knees, under the forehead. Just remembering that I'm a guide and that your body knows what's best. And see if you can start to expand through the breath, matching your inhales and exhales in length. Find a gentle suction cup with the hands. So imagining as though you had a chocolate coin underneath the palms, that your palm wouldn't press down on it, so it wouldn't melt, but you're gripping through the outer edges of the hands and the fingertips. See if you can curl the armpits slightly in towards the ears. Get a little softness through the neck. Then let the forehead release. Really soften through the skin on the face, soften through the jaw. And root down through the right sit bone. Start to walk your hands over to the left. And reach your right middle finger away from the right sit bone. Start to send the breath through the right side rib cage. Try and let the forehead settle. Let the head be heavy. See if you can curl the right shoulder any more downward towards the floor. And you can stay here. Option to walk the left hand a little bit closer towards the mat, and then weave the right hand underneath the left hand, tent up onto the left fingers. Your arms are really slightly hugging towards the head, but you still have lots of space between the neck and the shoulders. And if your mind starts to wander in the silence, just come back to the breath. Maybe take a 4 count, breathing into 4 and out to 4. Helping you stay focused and connected inward. And we'll unwind the hands. See if you can reach them any further out to the left. Keep digging back through the right sit bone. We inhale our way all the way to center. Find a full breath here. Melt the chest, the forehead down to the floor. The next inhale, we walk our hands over to the right. Root down through the left sit bone. Reach out through the left middle finger. Find that suction cup through the hands. And breathe through the whole left side of your torso. An option to start to walk the right fingertips a little bit back towards the mat, and then weave the left hand underneath. Press down through the left palm, lift up onto right fingertips. And notice if you started to hold through the face, just let it release. Maybe feel into the movement of the belly as you breathe. The inhale, sending it downwards towards the thighs or the mat. And the exhale is a little hollowing that rises up towards the spine. Maybe notice what it feels like to press down through the shins. Press down through the backs of the big toe mounds. When we unwind through the hands, take a full inhale. Exhale, sink down. And we walk ourselves back to center. From here, press down through the hands, keep them nice and wide. Rise up and send yourself forward, coming into a modified plank. And then lift up onto your left toes. Send the heel up towards the sky. Lean onto your right hip. Send the right leg all the way out in front of you, trying to make it as straight as you can. Then straighten through the left leg, but keep up on the toes. Option, if it feels like too much to have the leg straight, to bend through the knee. Then plant your palms onto the floor. Send your gaze forward, send your chest forward. So really root the left shoulder forward as the right shoulder comes back. And then you can stay right here, or you can begin to walk down onto your forearms. Coming into a prone twist. And if the leg is straight, can you really press down through the outside edge of the right foot? And if you have the forearms into the ground, press down into the forearms, let them lift up the shoulders, and then spread the shoulders away from one another through the front body and together through the back body. So we're staying nice and open through the heart center. Then keep sending that left heel back. Option to take the elbows wide, drop the right hand over top of the left hand, come all the way down with our forehead. And see if you can keep sending the right foot away from the right hip. And at the same time, keep dropping that left hip down towards the floor. Notice if you're trying to round through the spine, can you keep lengthening the top of the head away from the sit bones? And feel into the breath. Even as you twist through the stomach, can you still find full expansion there? And can you also try to breathe through the low back and extend through the entire rib cage with every inhale? And the next inhale, press the hands down into the floor. Start to guide yourself up onto your right elbow. Take the left fingertips onto the floor. And then take your left hand behind you. Roll your way down. Bring your left foot onto the floor as you guide your way onto your back. And settle the shoulder blades down. Take the right ankle across the left thigh. Coming into a figure four. Point the right toes towards the right knee. And take your right hand, place it on the thigh and send the thigh away. And If you're like me with a lot of hair, you might want to adjust your hair tie just so that the back of your head can rest smoothly onto the ground. Option 1, hang out right here. Option 2, begin to guide the left knee in towards the chest. Clasp your hands either underneath the hamstrings or around the shin. Keep sending that right knee away from you as you hug the left knee in. At the same time, see if you can try to send the left hip down and the right hip towards you. By up and down, I mean bottom of mat and top of mat versus ceiling and floor. You should feel this into the outer edge of your right leg. Maybe root down a little bit more through the back of the left hip. And try not to grip too hard through the fingers or through the arms. Just let the work come through the hip flexors, through the core, and through the hip abductors, the big gluteal muscles that send the legs out. And check in with the interlacing of your fingers and try to remember that. That's usually the most comfortable grip. Just stash that away for later in time. As we exhale, we release the hands, bring the sole of the foot down to the floor. Place the hands alongside you, palms face down. As you inhale, press through the left foot, lift up the hips, and then send the hips over to the right side of your mat as far as you can. Exhale, lower them down. Then inhale, send the knee away. Exhale, drop the left sole of the foot all the way down to the floor. So you might need to adjust yourself a little bit. So as my right sole of foot plants down to the floor, my knee presses up towards the sky, and it also presses down towards the back of my mat. Keep rooting the big toe mound down, and then send the right shoulder down into the floor as well. Turn the palms to face up, just a little more opening through the chest. An option to take your left hand, place it on the thigh, and press away. So you want to feel this right at the right hip crease. And if you don't feel anything, you probably haven't moved your hips enough over to the right. Just make those tiny adjustments so that you can really move into your own depth. And then as you hold here, see if you can create more space between the hip and the low ribs on both sides. So pull them away from one another. Find more length through the abdominal cavity. And even as you lengthen, just notice if you're holding the breath, can you still let that belly rise and fall? Maybe the gaze can turn over the right shoulder as you bring the right cheek down towards the floor. The final few breaths here. Just make sure it's not causing any pain or tension through the neck, no tingling or numbness through the arms. Don't want any of that. Gaze comes back to center on an inhale. As we exhale, we press down through the left foot, guide ourselves back up. Adjust the hips as much as you need to so that you're nice and neutral. And then take your left foot and walk it all the way over to the left side of your mat. You might even walk it slightly off of the mat. As we exhale, we start to lower our knees down to the right. So coming into windshield wiper. This feels like too much through the right leg, you can always, or through the left leg, you can release the right ankle to the floor instead. Otherwise, we keep that clasp and allow that pass passive pressure of the right leg to drop us even deeper through the left. Again, the palms just rest facing up alongside you. Lots of space between the shoulders and the ears. Option to take the gaze over towards the left this time. Bring your left cheek close down to the floor. And try to maintain a lot of length through the back of the neck rather than collapsing over to the left side as you twist. Imagining that one day your entire right thigh will rest upon the floor. And feel into the breath. We inhale the gaze back to center. Press down through the left foot as we rise our way back up. Adjust the foot so that it's centered in the middle of your mat. Guide the right thigh across the left thigh. Then walk your left foot a little bit closer towards the right side. Option 1, hang out right here. Keep rooting the shoulder blades in the back down towards the floor. If you'd like to go deeper, we come up through the head, tuck the chin and round through the spine, and then start to squeeze our knees in towards our chest. Clasp onto the ankles. Keep pointing the toes towards the knees so that your ankles are properly engaged. Good, and then we rest our head all the way down to the floor. Rest the shoulders down to the floor. And then imagine as though you're pulling the heels towards the opposite hips, while at the same time send your knees away from the chest. So this is Gomukhasana, recline version of it, also known as cow face pose, with the legs. And keep sending the heels towards the hips. Keep rooting down through the back body, especially through the sit bones, and squeeze the thighs together. Stay really active through the legs. And if it feels like a lot in the arms, that is normal. Just see if you can release through the throat, the neck. Try not to make it too much work for you. See if on your inhales you can send your sit bones away from the top of your head. So you keep the spine nice and long. You're not rounding through the shoulders. And on your next exhale, release the hands. Start to straighten through the left leg, but bring the heel out towards the right. Then let the right ankle drop over the left ankle. And you can walk them as far to the right as feels comfortable for you. If this feels like too much with the cross, you can just let the leg go, or let the right foot rest on the floor. Then hands can stay alongside you, or you can bring them for the ride, walking them over to the right. So you're making yourself into a banana asana, very clever name. And then gaze stays straight. Try and keep your head in line with the crescent moon shape of your body. Option to take the right hand over top of the left palm. And then stretch all the way from the left middle finger to the left heel. Keep pressing the left hip out to the left and rooting it down towards the floor. Then at the same time, take that little movement we did earlier on the right side where you send the right hip and the right low ribs away from one another. So even as we bend into the right side, we're still allowing for length, still allowing for expansion. And guide the breath through the whole left side of the body. Notice if your toes have gotten lazy, maybe stay active through the toes, really dig in through the left heel. And surrender here. Maybe close the eyes, focus your attention between the third eye, which is the space between the eyebrows. Notice if any visuals appear, any words, any thoughts. And as you observe, try not to label or attach. Try not to discern why whatever is showing up is showing up. Just allow it to appear and let it go. It's a practice of non-attachment. And if you struggle with that, maybe focus back in on the breath. Find that 4 breath count. Inhaling to 4 and exhaling to 4. Before anyone falls asleep on me, let's unclasp the hands, unclasp the ankles. Take one more full inhale, find a full stretch. Exhale, hold, melt down into the mat. And we inhale, start to walk ourselves back to center. And then sweep our right hand all the way across as we roll over onto our stomach. Press our hands back. Make our way into child's pose. And full breath in. Deep sigh out. Let yourself sit here for a moment. Feel the energy. Feel any shift in the body and the mind that you have created through that first side of this flow. And just see if you can come back to that sensation of the belly rising and falling with your breath. And press into the hands, guide the sit bones away, find a little bit more length through the spine. Exhale to empty. And we inhale. Shift our way all the way forward, finding a modified plank. And this time, we'll twist myself around here. We straighten through the right leg. And start to sink over onto your left hip. Keep the right toes tented. You might need to just press them down to help guide your way. And then remember the options. So option 1, you have that leg straight. Option 2, you bend through the knee. And then palms come forward. If you have the straight leg, actually wherever you are, try and keep tented up onto the tiptoes. And then stay here, send the left shoulders back, right shoulders forward. Root down through the outer edge of the left foot, and then option to come down onto your forearms. And so I already feel a difference in my body on this side. A little bit stickier through my left side than the right. But again, this practice of non-attachment, rather than wondering why, just feeling into it, breathing into it, letting it go. Coming back to this state of being. And we press our forearms into the floor. Let that rise up through the chest. See if you can send the flats of the shoulder blades towards one another along the midline of your back. And if you explored it on the other side and you want to go there on this side, take the left hand over the right as the elbows drop out. Bring your forehead down to the floor. Keep sending the left hip and the foot away from one another, and then dropping the right hip towards the floor. And the nice thing about yin is that we hold our poses for a while, and so we allow ourselves to slowly move it into the depth. And sometimes backing off, easing out a little bit, can help you over time get deeper. So really try to avoid this sense of force. Don't worry about trying to make that maximal depth off the hop. Remind yourself that every body is different, and that structurally the depth just might not be there, or might be really easy for us. All that I ask is when you find your edge, a place that feels slightly challenging but not painful, you try your best to hold in stillness so that you can allow yourself to tap into the mind, observing the thought patterns that come with different positions of the body. Especially when we're working through the hips, we hold a lot in our hips. People like to associate it with anger, but sometimes there's happiness, sadness, fear, all sorts of stuff residing there. When we move through these poses, we breathe through these poses, we can sometimes erase whatever it is that we're holding. At the very least, we can give some light to it. Let's press down through the hands, come back up onto the forearms. And then start to tent up onto your right fingers as you roll your way onto your back, taking the right sole of the foot this time down onto the floor. Adjust your hips, adjust your hair, make yourself look nice and pretty. And then take that left ankle onto the right thigh. Left hand comes onto the left thigh and guides it away. Keep pressing down through the back of the right hip. Point the left toes towards the knee. And settle through the shoulders, settle through the throat. Maybe put a little bit of a smile on your face. You're probably looking really serious right now. And then hang out here. Start to hug the thigh in towards the chest. This time find the awkward interlacing with the hand. So remember how I told you to stash it in your back pocket for later? This is the later. Notice if you're dumping towards the left or right, can you try and stay neutral through the low back? And try to stay fully active through the legs. So keep pressing the left knee away as you guide the right knee inward. And try to make the work be through the core and through the legs rather than through the arms. And feel the breath. And it's really fun to explore when we feel releases in our body. So sometimes we want to just back off and run away from them. We don't like that feeling. But other times it's good to just sit with it, breathe with it, and let it happen. I just felt one in my left hip, that's why I brought it up. Good, and then we unleash the hands, drop the foot down to the floor, plant the palms down to the floor, lift up through the hips, guide the hips over to the left, drop them down, plant the left sole of foot onto the floor, the entire outer right leg onto the floor. Press down through big toe mound of the left foot, and then send the left knee down to the bottom of your mat. Palms face up alongside you. If you would want a little bit more leverage, you can take that right hand, press the thigh away. Notice how this feels similar or different than the other side. Remembering there's no right or wrong, there just is. And for the last few rounds of breath, the gaze can turn over the left shoulder, bringing your cheek a little bit closer to the floor, if not all the way down. Keep sending the top of the head away from the sit bones, maintaining a long spine. Inhale, the gaze comes back to center. As we exhale, we use the hands to support us as we rise our way back up. Adjust the hips to neutral. And we walk our right foot all the way up to the right. And start to guide the knees to the left. So same options as we had on the other side. You can either keep that left ankle over top of the outer right knee, or you can just let the outer edge of the foot rest on the floor. Takes a little bit of the pressure off. Palms face up, and lots of space through the chest. Notice if your belly really wants to pop up to the sky, can you hug the lower ribs a little bit closer down towards the floor? Yet as you do so, make sure you're still breathing there. So we want to find this balance between core activation and holding. So we want to be able to still feel that expansion of the breath while we have that integrity of the pelvic floor, that integrity of this entire core stability. And maybe the gaze turns over the right shoulder, just making sure there's no pain, tingling, or numbness through the arms, through the neck. Visualizing that one day the inner right thigh will melt its way all the way down to the floor. And see if you can find that space between the hips and the low ribs. The inhale, spread them apart, lengthen, lengthen. The exhale, settle in. And once more, maybe guide the head a little further away, find more length. And exhale, sink in. This time we inhale, press up through the foot as we send our gaze back to center. Walk our right foot into the middle. Left thigh comes all the way across. Then we take our right toes, walk them all the way to the left edge of the mat. And we can hang out here if this is enough. Squeeze the inner thighs together. Drop the left hip away from the shoulder. Guide the right hip up towards the shoulder. So it actually can help to use your hands. Just allows you to really feel that movement through the pelvis. And then stay here. On an exhale, tuck the chin in towards the chest. Begin to lift the head off the floor as the knees squeeze in towards you. The heels come wide. The hands reach around. Find the engagement through the toes. So notice how I'm not just drooping through the feet. We're keeping them in one long line. And we exhale, release the shoulders to the floor, release the head to the floor. See if you can shake it out a little bit. Send the knees away. Imagine as though you're pressing your right leg into a wall. Good, and then pull the heels in towards you. Drop them down towards the hips. And as you find your stillness, remember that you can always make adjustments if they deepen your practice. And deepening your practice doesn't always mean deepening the pose. Sometimes it means easing out. The biggest thing that we can take away from this practice on the mat is that we have the control. We don't necessarily have the control of the external environment. I mean, we're in COVID right now. It's pretty evident that that's not the case. But we have the ability to create more ease in our life, even through challenge. We can choose what thoughts to hold on to, what thoughts to let go. And we can breathe through tension, whether physical, emotional. Let's see if you can squeeze the thighs anymore. Notice if you're starting to splay up through the rib cage, can you hug it back down? And then release the heels. Start to straighten through the right leg. Bring the heel all the way over to the left. Walk it off of your mat. Then straighten through the left leg. Maybe the ankle hooks around the right. Maybe that feels like a lot and you just want to release the foot down to the floor. And then send your right hip down and out to the right. Stay here with the arms, so the arms can tag along. Reach them out to the left. Root down through the right shoulder blade. And then the left palm can come over top of the right. And as you breathe, can you send the inhales to the front of the right hip and through every space in the rib cage. We've got these tiny muscles, the intercostals, that connect between each of the 12 ribs. Just visualize expanding those muscles as much as you can with every breath. And the external intercostals, the ones that are most superficial, help with the inhales. And then the layer below those, the internal intercostals, help with the external, or the exhales. And then the ones even deeper, the innermost intercostals, kind of do a little bit of both. Just in case you wanted a bit of anatomy while you were resting in your banana pose. behind the hands and the feet. Take a full inhale through the whole right side body. Exhale, drop in. And we inhale, guide ourselves all the way back to center. Let the hands come down alongside you. Spread the legs wide, the heels just off of the edges of your mat. Moving into Shavasana, our final resting pose. Press down through the back of your head. Let the shoulders lift up and walk the shoulder blades underneath you. So you feel the shoulder blades kind of scoop and flatten and press down into the floor. Then plant the heels into the floor. Do the same thing with your sacrum. So you lift up through the hips and then you sneak the sacrum down slightly. So you're taking a really gentle tuck of the tailbone and let it flatten down. And there should still be a slight space there because the lumbar spine or the low back has a little bit of a curve. Lordotic curve. It's there since birth and it's there to help you stay balanced on top of your pelvis, on top of your feet. If it's comfortable, close the eyes, palms face up. Start to release through the scalp, soften through the face, the forehead, the cheeks, the eyes. Go with any tension through the jaw, the tongue. Release through the throat. And feel open through the heart center. And grounded through the back of your shoulders. Feel your arms be heavy and your fingertips be soft. Feel stable through the low back and open through the front of the hips. Release through the hips. Feel heavy through the legs. And float the toes. Let go of any control of the breath. Let go of any activity through the muscles. Just give your body this moment to absorb. Allowing for time to rejuvenate, time to nourish, and maybe time to shift perspective in the mind. Reminding yourself that we are constantly in this state of doing, and sometimes it's really refreshing to be. To not have to attach on to anything or set an intention. Wiggle through the fingers. And take your hands just above the hips. So your pinky fingers press down into the hip bone, and then your thumbs press into your low rib. Well, it's actually your 10th rib because the 11th and 12th don't attach through the front body. And on an inhale, see if you can guide the fingers away from one another, create more space through the side body. And as you exhale, try to maintain that space, but just melt down into the floor. Let's do that a few more times. Maybe start to visualize sending the heels and the top of your head away from one another as well. And taking control of your breath. Matching the length of the inhale with the length of the exhale. And take the hands onto the hip bones. And tilt the left hip up towards the left shoulder, drop the right hip away, and bring the right hip up towards the right shoulder, drop the left hip towards left heel. Just tilting through the pelvis. Move nice and slowly. And take one more each side. Ending with a rock to the right. And come back to neutral. Guide your right hand onto your heart and your left hand over top. Circle through the feet, wiggle the toes. And plant the soles of the feet onto the floor. Walk the knees in together. Feet wide to the edges of your mat. Constructive rest. Find a full breath in and a deep sigh out. On the next inhale, thank yourself for showing up on your mat, exploring and staying curious. And then exhale, setting an intention of carrying this practice off of your mat and into your daily lives. Inhale, gratitude to everyone who has shared this practice with you. Even though we are practicing in our home, there's still this state of energy in knowing that others have shared. And others have been here, others have wandered this path. And thank you so much for sharing in this practice with me. These videos are made through love and hard work. Your contributions allow me to keep sharing new content with you. If you're able to give back financially, please click the Make a Donation button on the homepage of this channel. You're also welcome to subscribe to stay up to date on the latest video offerings. Thank you so much for sharing your time with me, and I look forward to seeing you again soon. Don't eat Kona!